It was a typical Thursday night. I was wrapping up work, checking my emails and finishing the last of the day's paperwork, when my phone buzzed. The caller ID read, "Sarah, my wife of 6 years." I hadn't heard from her much today, so it was odd that she was calling so late. I answered immediately. "Hey, babe, what's up?" Her voice was a little shaky, like she was trying to hide something. "Hey, I need you to come pick me up. I'm at that bar on Elm Street." I frowned. "Why? What happened?" "It's nothing," she said quickly, too quickly. I'm not feeling well. Can you come get me, please?" Something in her tone made me pause. It wasn't the typical, "I had too much to drink," excuse. No, this felt like something else. But I didn't question her. "Of course, I'm on my way." I grabbed my keys, threw on my jacket, and left the house. It was only a few blocks to the bar, and I didn't think much of it at first. I'd picked her up before after nights out with friends, and usually, it was a quick stop. I wasn't expecting any surprises. When I pulled into the parking lot of the bar, I saw Sarah standing near the entrance, but there was something off about her. She wasn't alone. I could see her laughing, her head tilted back as someone was standing beside her, too close. A man, one I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't right. I stayed in the truck for a moment, watching them. The man was leaning in too casually, his hand on her arm, her smile too wide, too easy. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I didn't need to. The body language said it all. The closeness. The chemistry. The kind of chemistry I hadn't seen between us in a long time. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. My first instinct was to drive away, to not confront this, to keep pretending that everything was fine, like I had been for months. But I couldn't. I wasn't going to let my gut feel like it was being torn apart by some random moment. I parked my truck a little farther down the lot, out of sight, and just waited. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't sad yet. I was just waiting for the truth. I didn't have to wait long. After a few minutes, Sarah finally noticed me. Her smile faltered. She gave the guy a quick goodbye and made her way to the truck. But she didn't look at me. She didn't meet my eyes. "Hey," she said quietly, opening the door. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched her. Her clothes were disheveled, her hair a little messier than usual. And her eyes? There was something in them, guilt, maybe. Or was it just shame? I couldn't tell, but it didn't sit right. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice softer than I expected. She hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, just, long night." I didn't respond. I just started driving. The silence between us was thick, heavy. But I wasn't going to let her off the hook this time. I didn't care how she tried to cover it up. I needed answers. I took a deep breath and glanced at her. Who was that guy? Her fingers tightened around her purse. She stared out the window. No one. Just a friend. I knew better. I knew she wasn't telling the truth. "A friend, huh?" I said. "The kind of friend you laugh with at a bar while your husband's waiting at home." She winced, her grip on her purse tightening even more. "It's not like that, Colton. You don't understand." "Then explain it to me," I shot back, my voice rising. "Tell me how you're laughing with some guy while I'm sitting at home, wondering where the hell you are." She was quiet for a long time. Too long. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to say." I turned the truck down a side street, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. "You can start by telling me the truth, Sarah. I deserve that much." She looked at me then, her eyes brimming with something I couldn't read. "I made a mistake," she said finally. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. The silence that filled the truck felt heavier than any words could be. Because we both knew. This was just the beginning. I didn't respond to her apology immediately. In fact, I couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat, and for the first time in a long time, I was at a loss. We kept driving, the quiet between us growing heavier with every passing second. I parked outside our house, turned off the engine, but didn't move. I kept my hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead, not sure what to say next. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't ready to scream or shout. No. I was just numb. The door handle clicked, and she opened the door to get out. But before she could leave, I spoke, quietly, with a level of control I didn't even know I had. "Don't go, Sarah. We need to talk." She paused, looking back at me. The guilt was all over her face now, raw and undeniable. She closed the door behind her and sat back down, her eyes flicking between me and the dashboard. "I don't want to fight," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to hurt you more. You already have, I said, my voice calm but cutting. And now you're asking me for forgiveness? Just like that? She flinched. I didn't mean for this to happen, Colton. I never meant to hurt you. Her words were rushed, frantic now, like she was trying to catch up with her own guilt. Then why did you betray me? Why did you go to that bar, laugh with him, while I waited at home wondering if you'd even come back? My voice cracked for a second, but I fought the wave of emotion that threatened to break through. I was here. Every day. I worked hard for us, for you, for this family. And you. I stopped myself. She didn't deserve any more words from me. Not yet. She didn't speak for a long moment. She looked out the window, her expression hollow, like she was searching for the right words that would never come. I don't have an excuse, she said finally. I lost myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. The woman sitting in front of me was not the woman I married. She was a stranger. A woman who had already made her choices while I was still trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. I don't know when it started, she continued, her voice breaking. I just felt so empty. And she stopped herself, her breath shaking. He was there. He listened. I wasn't looking for this. I wasn't looking to hurt you. Then why did you keep seeing him? I asked, my voice low. Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me when you were feeling lost? You shut me out, Sarah. I tried. God knows I tried. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, tears spilling down her face. I didn't want to admit I wasn't happy. I didn't want to admit that I didn't know who I was anymore. I thought maybe if I just kept pretending, things would get better. I shook my head slowly. Pretending. That's it, isn't it? You spent months pretending, and I kept feeding into it. I kept waiting for the woman I married to come back, and she never did. She sobbed, her hands clutching the seat in front of her. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I swear I never wanted to hurt you. I sat in silence for a long moment, letting the reality of everything sink in. I couldn't keep pretending either. I couldn't keep pretending that what we had was worth saving, not when she had already given up on it. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said softly. I don't know if I even want to. Her face crumpled in pain, and for a second, I saw a flicker of the woman I once loved, the woman I thought I knew. But it was too late. The damage had already been done, and I couldn't pretend I didn't see the truth. Maybe I don't deserve your forgiveness, she said quietly, wiping her eyes. But I need you to know that I'm not the same person I was. I don't want to keep living this lie. I just want to fix things. I looked at her for what felt like the longest time, but in the end, I couldn't find the strength to give her that. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. Not after everything. Not after the lies. Not after the betrayal. I don't think we can fix this, Sarah, I said quietly. I think we've already broken what we had. I felt a weight lift from my chest as I said those words. It was the first time in months I had felt a sense of clarity, a sense of peace. She nodded, her lips trembling as she tried to find the words that wouldn't come. I never wanted to lose you, she said in a broken whisper. I know, I said, but you already have. The silence between us was deafening. I didn't know what else to say. There was no magic word, no apology that could undo what had happened. The trust was gone, the love, shattered. What was left was just the remnants of a marriage I couldn't save anymore. I'm going to leave, she said quietly, looking down at her hands. I nodded. I didn't ask her where she was going. I didn't need to know. She stood slowly, her steps heavy, like she was carrying a weight she could no longer bear. As she walked out of the truck, she paused for a second, looking back at me. Goodbye, Colton, she said softly. And just like that, she was gone. I sat there in the truck, staring at the empty space beside me. The weight of everything hit me all at once, the betrayal, the loss, the broken promises. But amidst the ache, something else started to grow. Relief. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't have to carry her mistakes. I didn't have to wait for something that was never coming back. The days after Sarah left were quiet, almost too quiet. I'd gone from spending my days with a woman I thought I knew, to suddenly having an empty house, the silence stretching between me and my own thoughts. I didn't know what to do with the emptiness. I didn't know where to start picking up the pieces. At first, I focused on Ryan. He'd taken the news better than I expected, but he was still adjusting. He still asked about Sarah, where she was, when she'd be back, if she was okay. I kept my answers short, not wanting to lie to him, but not wanting to break his heart either. I told him she was just trying to figure things out, and I left it at that. It wasn't a lie. She was trying to figure things out. But I was starting to wonder if the woman who left that night was someone I would ever be able to trust again. I threw myself into work. It was easy to bury myself in the long hours and the endless deadlines. The busier I was, the less time I had to think about what happened, to think about Sarah, or the fact that I was now living alone in a house that used to be filled with laughter and love. But no matter how much I tried to escape it, the questions came creeping back. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I notice the signs earlier? How long had this been going on? I couldn't answer any of those questions, and the uncertainty gnawed at me. But there was something else, too. Something I hadn't expected. I was angry. Angry at Sarah, angry at myself for not seeing the cracks in our marriage sooner. But more than that, I was angry at her, the woman who'd replaced the one I thought I loved. The woman who had been living a lie, while I held on to a dream that no longer existed. I was angry at her for robbing me of the life I thought I had. That was the hardest part. The anger wasn't just at her for cheating, for betraying me, but for taking the life we built and leaving me with nothing but shattered pieces. The anger wasn't something I could turn off, and it wasn't something I could ignore. So, I let it simmer. Ryan and I fell into a new routine. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was ours. We went to the park on weekends, played soccer in the yard, watched movies at night. It wasn't the life I had imagined for us, but it was the life we were living now, and I wasn't going to let her take that from me. Emma, too, was there for me in ways I hadn't expected. She never pushed me to talk about Sarah. She never tried to rush anything between us. She just showed up. Every day. And it was that quiet consistency that made all the difference. One night, about a month after Sarah had left, Emma and I sat on the porch, the sky fading from blue to dark purple. Ryan had gone to bed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe without the weight of everything pressing down on me. "You okay?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. I looked over at her, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "I'm getting there." She nodded. "You've been through a lot. You're allowed to take your time." I took a deep breath and leaned back in the chair, staring up at the stars. I don't think I realized how much of me was tied up in all that. In her. In us. I gave so much of myself to the idea of us that I didn't even know who I was without it. She was quiet for a long time, her eyes soft as she watched me. "You're still you. The same person you were before her. The same person who worked hard every day, who loved his son and never stopped trying to make things better." "I don't feel like that person anymore," I admitted, my voice low. "I don't know who I am without the weight of all this." "You're still the same, Colton," she said. "You're just figuring out who you are now. And that's okay. You don't need to have all the answers right now." I looked at her, feeling the weight of her words sink in. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for being here, for not rushing me, for letting me figure this out." She smiled, her eyes full of warmth. "I'm not going anywhere." That simple assurance, those few words, felt like a lifeline. I didn't need her to fix me, I didn't need her to make everything perfect. But I needed her to be real, and in that moment, I knew she was. The next few weeks passed in a blur of small victories and difficult moments. I didn't let Sarah's absence define me anymore. I focused on Ryan, on being the father he needed, and on rebuilding myself, piece by piece. The anger started to fade, replaced by something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. It wasn't easy. Some days, the weight of everything still pressed down on me, and I found myself staring at the empty side of the bed, wondering how it all went wrong. But then I'd look at Ryan, laughing, growing, living, and I'd remind myself that I wasn't alone in this. I had him. And that was enough. As the days turned into weeks, I started to feel the weight of Sarah's absence less and less. It wasn't that I didn't still feel the sting of betrayal, or that I was over what she did to us, but I started to realize something. I had more control over my life than I had allowed myself to believe. Ryan was adjusting, and so was I. We fell into a rhythm that didn't revolve around anyone else. Our routines became comfortable again, Saturday morning soccer games, Sundays at the lake, quiet dinners at home. For the first time in a long time, it felt like we were living our own lives, without anyone else's influence or expectations weighing on us. But despite everything feeling normal, there was still something unsettled beneath the surface. I wasn't entirely whole. Not yet. It was like I was still waiting for something to shift, something to let me know that I was done with this chapter, that it was over. I tried to ignore it for a while. I threw myself into work, threw myself into being a good father. But then, one evening, everything came to a head. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through some paperwork, when the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something told me I needed to pick it up. I did. Hello, Colton. It was Sarah. My stomach tightened at the sound of her voice. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. Not since she left that night, not since the last time I'd seen her. I hadn't expected her to reach out again, and I certainly hadn't expected it to be like this. What do you want? I asked, my voice calm, but my heart racing in my chest. I need to see Ryan, she said quickly. I've been trying to figure out when would be the right time, but I think I've waited long enough. I'm sorry for everything I've done. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to see him. I miss him so much. There it was. That familiar tone, the guilt, the regret. I could hear the emotion in her voice, but it didn't move me the way it used to. I don't know if he's ready to see you, I said carefully. I've told you before, he has to make that decision. He's been asking about you, but I'm not sure if he's ready to face all of this yet. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Please, Colton. I'm begging you. I could feel her desperation through the phone, but it only made me more resolute. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about Ryan. It was about doing what was best for him, not for her. I'll talk to him, I said, my voice steady. But it's up to him. Not me. Not you. She sighed heavily. I understand. I just want to try, Colton. I need to try. You need to earn that, Sarah, I said, finally letting some of the anger creep into my voice. And I'm not going to let you use Ryan as a way to make yourself feel better. This isn't about you fixing yourself. This is about him. I know, she whispered, the tears evident in her voice. I know. I just want to make it right. I didn't answer right away. There was nothing more to say. The truth was, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. I didn't know if I could ever fully let go of the betrayal, or the way she had walked out on us. But I wasn't going to keep Ryan from the truth. It wasn't my place to shield him from what had happened. He had to make his own decisions, as painful as they might be. I'll let you know what he decides, I said, my tone final. But I won't let you back into his life until he's ready. Not before. She didn't respond right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. I understand. I'll wait. I hung up the phone without saying anything else. I felt a strange calmness wash over me, mixed with the familiar anger I'd been holding onto for too long. I wasn't ready to forgive Sarah. I wasn't ready to give her the space to fix everything with a few words and a few tears. But I was ready to protect my son. I was ready to do what was best for him, even if that meant telling Sarah she didn't get to dictate how or when things would be fixed. That night, after Ryan went to bed, I sat in the living room, replaying the conversation over and over. I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing. I was setting boundaries. I wasn't going to let her back in until she proved she had changed. But then the self-doubt crept in. Was I being too harsh? Was I shutting her out too soon? I didn't have an answer. And honestly, I didn't think it mattered. What mattered was that I was choosing to protect my son, choosing to move forward, choosing not to be stuck in the past anymore. I glanced at the photo of our family on the mantel, the one that used to make me feel warm and nostalgic. Now, it just felt like a reminder of what I'd lost. But I wasn't going to let it define me anymore. I wasn't going to let the past weigh me down. Ryan deserved better. He deserved a chance to heal, to find his own way through this. And I was going to make sure he got that. The next few days were filled with a quiet tension. Sarah's call had set something in motion, but I wasn't sure where it would lead. I talked to Ryan about the phone call, keeping it simple, just the facts. I didn't want to overwhelm him with more information than he needed. She wants to see you, I said gently one evening, as we sat together in the living room. Ryan looked up from his drawing, his brow furrowing. What did you say? I told her I'd talk to you about it, I said, my voice steady. But it's your choice, Ryan. If you don't want to see her, that's okay. You don't owe anyone anything. He was quiet for a long time, staring at the paper in front of him, his pencil moving slowly across it. I didn't rush him. I wanted him to process this in his own way, at his own pace. I don't know, he said finally. I think I want to see her, but I don't know if I can trust her again. I nodded, my chest tightening a little at the honesty in his voice. That's okay. It's okay to feel like that. It's not something you need to figure out all at once. He nodded slowly, and then added, do you think she really means it? That she's sorry? I leaned forward, my hands clasped together. I don't know, Ryan. I really don't. But what matters is that you decide when you're ready to talk to her. Not because she wants it, but because you do. He sat back, his eyes still full of confusion. I'm just scared, Dad. What if she hurts me again? I took a deep breath, my heart breaking for him. I can't promise that won't happen, but I can promise that I'm here for you. No matter what happens, you won't go through it alone. Ryan gave me a small, unsure smile. It wasn't much, but it was something. And in that moment, I knew he was starting to trust me again. To trust that I would put him first, no matter what. Later that night, after Ryan had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the phone. I thought about everything Sarah had said to me, the apology, the guilt, the desperate plea for another chance. I knew she was trying to make things right, but I wasn't sure if I could ever trust her again. Could I really let her back into our lives? Could I ever forgive her for what she did to Ryan, to me, to the life we had built? I didn't have the answers. All I knew was that I couldn't make this decision for Ryan. It was his choice, and whatever happened, I would support him. The next morning, Ryan surprised me. "I think I'm ready," he said at breakfast, his voice quiet but firm. "I think I want to see her." I could see the apprehension in his eyes, the way his fingers fidgeted with the edge of his cereal bowl. I knew this wasn't an easy decision for him. It wasn't easy for any of us. "Are you sure, buddy?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. He nodded. "Yeah. I just want to know why she did it. I want to know if she's really sorry." I paused, taking a moment to think it over. I wanted to make sure he was ready for this, that he understood the risks. But I also knew that this was something he needed to do for himself. "All right," I said, my voice steady. "We'll figure out when and where. But remember, Ryan, this doesn't mean you have to forgive her right away. This is just about you getting the answers you need." He nodded, relief flooding his face. "Thanks, Dad." I reached over and ruffled his hair. "I'm proud of you, son, for making that choice." The following day, I made the call. I told Sarah that Ryan was ready to meet, and we set up a time for her to come over. I kept the meeting casual. I didn't want to put any more pressure on Ryan than there already was. When the day came, I drove Ryan to the park where they'd agreed to meet. It was a quiet, peaceful place, surrounded by trees, away from the distractions of the city. Sarah was waiting at a bench when we arrived. She looked nervous, her hands twisting together, but there was something else in her eyes, hope, maybe, or desperation. I stayed at a distance, giving them space, but I didn't leave. Not yet. Ryan walked up to her slowly, his steps hesitant. Sarah stood up when she saw him, her face softening. She looked like she wanted to run to him, to throw her arms around him and beg for forgiveness, but she stayed still, waiting for him to make the first move. "Hey, Ryan," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he stood there for a moment, looking at her, studying her face. His gaze was steady, but his lips were pressed tightly together. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to figure out if she was telling the truth, if she meant what she was saying. Finally, he spoke. "Why did you leave?" he asked, his voice steady, but the pain in it was unmistakable. Sarah swallowed hard. "I was lost, Ryan. I don't know how to explain it. I made so many mistakes, and I hurt you and your dad in ways I can never take back. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Ryan didn't say anything. He just looked at her, his eyes searching hers for something, for the truth, for an apology that felt real. And for the first time in months, I saw her look at him with the same tenderness that used to fill our house. It was a small, subtle shift, but it was there. She wasn't just sorry for what she had done. She was sorry for how she had hurt him. "Are you really sorry?" Ryan asked quietly, his voice full of uncertainty. "Or are you just saying it because you think you have to?" Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as though the weight of his question had knocked the air out of her. When she opened them again, there was no doubt in her gaze. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now, but I want you to know that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Ryan stared at her for a long moment, and I could feel the tension in the air. I couldn't hear their words from where I stood, but I could see the way Ryan's shoulders slowly relaxed, the way he finally took a step closer to her. I didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, I knew one thing. We were all moving forward. The days that followed Ryan's meeting with Sarah were filled with a strange mixture of hope and hesitation. Ryan didn't talk much about his conversation with her, but I could see the change in him. There was a subtle shift, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He wasn't exactly happy, but he was no longer carrying the crushing burden of uncertainty. I gave him space, just like I had promised. He didn't need me to push him into anything, and I wasn't going to rush him into forgiveness. He had taken the first step, and I was proud of him for that. But I couldn't shake the lingering questions. What was next for us? For me? For Ryan? Was Sarah really going to change, or was this all just another attempt to make herself feel better? Could I trust her again, even a little? I didn't know the answers. I was trying to accept that, but accepting it didn't make it any easier. One night, after dinner, I found myself alone in the living room with Emma. Ryan was upstairs, reading in his room. Emma and I had become close over the past few months, but even now, I still wasn't sure what to do with all the feelings I had for her. She never rushed me. She never asked for more than I was ready to give. And that made it both easier and harder. "I think Ryan's doing better," Emma said, breaking the silence. She sat across from me, her legs tucked under her, a cup of tea in her hands. "Yeah," I agreed. "I think he is. But I'm not sure I'm doing better. I don't know if I'll ever really feel whole again." She looked at me with those kind eyes, the ones that always seemed to understand even when I wasn't sure I understood myself. "You don't have to be whole to move forward, Colton. You just have to keep moving." I took a deep breath, staring at the floor for a moment. "I feel like I'm stuck. Like I'm still holding on to pieces of something that doesn't exist anymore." "You are," she said gently. "But that doesn't mean you can't still move forward. It just means you have to be okay with the fact that you might never have all the answers. And you need to let go of the idea that you'll ever be the person you were before. Because you won't be. But that doesn't mean you can't be something else. Something better." I nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. She was right. I wasn't the same man I was before Sarah's betrayal. And maybe I never would be. But that didn't mean I couldn't be someone stronger. Someone who could finally let go of the past and move forward, one step at a time. "Thank you," I said softly. I didn't know what else to say. The truth was, I didn't know how I felt about Emma. I didn't know if I was ready to let myself feel anything for anyone again. But I knew she was right. I had to stop holding on to what was gone. "I'm here," she said quietly. "Whatever you need." I smiled, a small, grateful smile, and looked at her for a moment. "I know you are." The next few days passed in a blur. I focused on work, on Ryan, on getting things done around the house. I had to admit, it felt good to be busy. It kept my mind off the bigger questions that were still looming over me. Could I trust Sarah? Could I forgive her? And most importantly, was I ready to move on? Then, unexpectedly, Sarah called again. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear from her, but part of me knew it was coming. She had reached out to me a few times in the past week, asking if Ryan was okay, if he wanted to see her again. I had been reluctant to engage, but now, there she was, her number flashing on my phone once again. I let it ring a few times before answering. I wasn't sure what I was going to say. "Colton," Sarah's voice crackled through the phone. She sounded tired, like she hadn't slept in days. "Can we talk?" I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling for a moment. "What do you want, Sarah?" I want to explain. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I need you to know that I'm trying. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to make things right. For Ryan. For us." Her words were familiar, rehearsed even, but they still hit me like a punch in the gut. I could hear the desperation in her voice, the need for approval, for redemption. "Why now?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with disbelief. "Why after everything? After everything you put him through?" "I didn't know what I was doing, Colton," she said softly. "I lost myself. I thought I could find something else, something better. But all I found was a mess. And now I have to live with it. But I want to try, for Ryan's sake. I know I can't fix what's broken, but I want him to know I'm trying." I was silent for a moment, my fingers tapping against the armrest. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't ready to forgive her, and I wasn't sure I ever would be. But I also wasn't willing to let her destroy Ryan's chance at healing. "Sarah," I said finally, my voice firm, "if you want to make things right, you need to stop asking for forgiveness and start showing him that you're serious. Actions speak louder than words. And Ryan needs to see that you can be trusted again. Not just for a day or a week, but for the long haul." There was a long pause. Then she said, "I understand. I just want him to know I'm here when he's ready." "Okay," I said. "I'll let him decide. But you need to give him the space to make that decision. Don't push him." "I won't," she whispered. "Thank you, Colton." I hung up without another word, the weight of her request hanging in the air. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I didn't know if Ryan would ever forgive her, or if I could. But I wasn't going to force him to make any decisions he wasn't ready for. I wasn't ready either. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was moving in the right direction. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope. I had a conversation with Ryan about Sarah's latest call. I kept it simple, just letting him know that she was trying to make amends, that she wanted to be there for him. He didn't say much, just nodded and went back to his drawing, his mind clearly elsewhere. But I could see the struggle behind his eyes, the same struggle I had felt for so long. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. I didn't know if he would ever be ready to forgive her. And if I was being honest with myself, I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive her either. But I knew one thing for sure, this was his journey, not mine. I couldn't dictate how he felt or what he decided. That weekend, Emma and I took Ryan to the park. He didn't talk much, but he seemed content to be out in the open air. Emma and I exchanged glances, both of us knowing that the quiet between us was a sign that he was still processing, still figuring things out. Later that night, I got another call. This time, it wasn't Sarah. It was James, my friend and attorney. "Colton," he said when I picked up. "I know it's been a while since we talked, but I've got some news for you." I sat up straight, my heart rate quickening. "What's going on?" "I've heard from Sarah's lawyer," he said, his voice careful. "It looks like she's going to file for joint custody. She wants to start seeing Ryan more regularly." I felt a rush of frustration. I wasn't surprised, not entirely. I knew this was coming, but hearing it from James made it real in a way that was hard to ignore. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered under my breath. "She's going to push this now, after everything?" "I'm afraid so," James replied. "But don't panic. We've got time. I'll help you through it, but you need to be prepared. We may need to go to court if she's serious about this." I took a deep breath, trying to process what he was saying. Sarah hadn't been there for months, hadn't earned the right to just waltz back into our lives and ask for more time with Ryan. This wasn't about her redemption. This was about her wanting control, wanting a piece of something she had abandoned. "I won't let her hurt Ryan again," I said, my voice firm. "I'm not going to let her pull him back into the chaos." "I know," James said. "That's why we need to have everything ready. It's going to be a fight, but we'll make sure he's protected." I thanked James and hung up. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the phone, the weight of what he'd told me settling deep into my chest. The idea of going to court, of putting Ryan through all of this again, made my stomach turn. But I knew I couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything. The next morning, I had a conversation with Ryan. It was harder than I thought it would be. He could tell something was off, and he asked me about it right away. "Dad, what's going on? You're acting different." I sighed, running my hand through my hair. "Sarah's asking for more time with you, Ryan. She's saying she wants to start seeing you more regularly." Ryan's face tightened, the same look of confusion and uncertainty I had seen before. "I don't want to go back to the way things were, Dad," he said, his voice quiet. "I don't want to see her like that. Not if she's just going to leave again." I sat down next to him, putting my arm around his shoulders. "You don't have to make any decisions now. You can take your time with this, okay? If you don't want to see her right now, that's okay. You don't owe anyone anything." He nodded, but I could tell he was still processing it, still unsure about how to navigate the mess she had left behind. "I don't know if I can trust her again," he whispered. "You don't have to trust her right now," I said gently. "Just know that I'll be here, no matter what. We'll figure it out together." Ryan smiled weakly and rested his head on my shoulder. I wanted to believe that things would get easier, that this would all be a distant memory someday. But I wasn't so sure. The truth was, this was never going to be easy. Healing wasn't linear. It wasn't something that could be fixed with one conversation or one apology. It was going to take time. And even then, we might never get back to the way things were. But we could still move forward. We could still rebuild. Together. That night, I sat in the living room, thinking about the next steps. What did I want for Ryan? What did I want for us? Was I really ready to go to court over custody? Would I be able to put my anger aside and let Sarah back into our lives, even in a limited way? I didn't have the answers. But what I did know was that I wasn't going to let this destroy Ryan. I wasn't going to let his future be shaped by the choices Sarah had made. If she wanted to be part of his life, she was going to have to prove she deserved it. The road ahead was uncertain. There would be days when I'd feel like I was taking one step forward and two steps back. But I wasn't going to let fear control me anymore. I was going to fight for what was best for Ryan, for both of us. And no matter what happened next, I knew one thing. I wasn't in this alone. The following week felt like a slow-motion version of everything I feared. Sarah's lawyer sent over the custody papers, outlining her request for joint custody of Ryan. I tried to ignore the flutter of anxiety in my chest, but it wasn't easy. The reality was settling in, one document at a time. The fight was coming, and I wasn't sure how to prepare for it. I couldn't let Ryan see me struggling with this, though. He needed me to be steady, to be the calm in the storm. That was the hardest part, keeping my emotions in check when all I wanted to do was scream. Scream at Sarah for everything she'd done to us, at the system that might let her back into our lives, at myself for not seeing it sooner. Instead, I kept my focus on Ryan. He was doing better. Not perfect, but better. He still had moments of doubt, still asked me questions I didn't have answers to. But he wasn't as distant as he'd been before. He wasn't avoiding me. He wasn't avoiding life. One afternoon, after school, I found Ryan sitting in the living room, staring out the window. His backpack was slung over the chair, and his legs were curled up underneath him. It was one of those moments when I knew something was on his mind. I sat down next to him, careful not to crowd him. "What's going on, buddy?" I asked, keeping my voice gentle. "You okay?" He didn't look at me, just kept staring out the window, the clouds moving slowly in the sky. "Do you think she's really going to change?" His voice was quiet, unsure, like he was testing the question out. "Do you want her to change?" I asked him back. Ryan looked up at me then, his eyes searching mine. "I don't know. I don't know if I can trust her again, but I want to. I want to believe that she can be better." I felt my heart ache for him. "You don't have to make that decision now, Ryan. And you don't have to forgive her. What you feel is okay, and if you ever need to talk about it, I'm here. I just want things to go back to normal," he said, his voice tight with emotion. "I want things to be like they were before." I knew the weight of his words. He was still holding on to the dream of a family that wasn't coming back, and I couldn't blame him for that. But I also couldn't let him stay trapped in the past, unable to move forward. "Normal isn't going to look the same as it used to, Ryan," I said softly. "But we can still make something new. It might not be easy. It might never be perfect, but it'll be ours." He nodded, the uncertainty still lingering in his eyes, but he didn't say anything else. We sat in silence for a while, watching the world go by outside. For the first time in what felt like forever, it didn't seem like everything was falling apart. It felt like there was a tiny sliver of hope peeking through the clouds. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, I checked my phone. Another message from Sarah. I wasn't surprised, but the anger still flared up inside me every time I saw her name on the screen. "Colton, I know things are tense right now, but I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. Please, just let me see Ryan again." I stared at the screen for a moment, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what the right thing was anymore. But one thing was clear, I couldn't keep pretending that everything would magically fix itself. I couldn't just let her waltz back into our lives without earning it. I put my phone down without responding. I wasn't ready to engage with her yet. Not when I still didn't know if I could trust her, not when Ryan was still processing everything. The last thing I wanted was to drag him into a mess he wasn't prepared for. The next day, I met with James again. I needed to talk strategy. If Sarah was serious about fighting for joint custody, then I needed to be prepared. I couldn't let her back in without a fight. Ryan deserved more than that. "I've been going over the paperwork," James said, handing me a folder. "And I'm going to be straight with you, Colton. If she wants to go to court over this, we're going to need to have everything in place. This isn't going to be a quick process." I nodded, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. "What do I need to do?" "We need to show that you've been the one taking care of Ryan, that you're his primary caretaker. You need to gather all the evidence of her absence, of her lack of involvement in his life. We also need to focus on his well-being, how he's doing with you, how he's adjusting. We'll need statements from his teachers, from anyone who's seen you together as a family." I didn't like the sound of it, but I knew it was necessary. I had to be ready to fight for Ryan. There was no other choice. "I'll start putting everything together," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "I'm not going to let her tear our lives apart again." James gave me a reassuring smile. "I've got your back, Colton. We'll do everything we can to make sure Ryan's best interests are at the forefront." I left the meeting feeling more focused than I had in weeks. I didn't have all the answers. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let Sarah hurt Ryan again. Not if I could help it. Later that night, I sat with Ryan in the living room, both of us in silence for a while. Then, without looking up, he spoke. "Dad, do you think I'll ever be okay again?" I thought about it for a moment before answering. "I don't know, Ryan. But I do know that you're not alone. And I'll help you get through it. We'll figure it out together." He smiled slightly. "Thanks, Dad." And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to believe it too. The days after my meeting with James blurred together. I dove headfirst into preparing everything we'd need for the custody battle. Every conversation with Sarah, every moment Ryan spent asking questions or bringing up the past, felt like another piece of the puzzle I had to solve. But as much as I focused on keeping everything in order, there was a lingering feeling that no matter how prepared I was, I couldn't control the outcome. The court, the system, none of that would take away the fear that Sarah might still find a way to hurt Ryan again. I tried to stay calm, to keep myself focused, but the anger still simmered under the surface. Every time I saw her name pop up on my phone, every time I thought about what she had done to our family, a small voice inside me wanted to lash out. But I knew I couldn't. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about Ryan. I kept talking to him, kept checking in with him every chance I got. I didn't know what his heart wanted, or where his mind was at, but I wasn't going to leave him alone with this. He wasn't ready to forgive Sarah, and he wasn't sure if he ever would be. But I could see the way he was thinking about things. I could see the wheels turning behind those eyes, the struggle between wanting to make peace with his mom and wanting to protect himself from the hurt she caused. One evening, as I was making dinner, Ryan came into the kitchen, his eyes a little tired but full of something else. He had something to say. "Dad," he began, his voice quieter than usual. "I've been thinking about what you said. About making my own decisions." I stopped what I was doing, glancing over at him. "What are you thinking?" "I think I'm ready to talk to her again, but only on my terms. Not because she asked me to. Not because you want me to." I exhaled, my heart suddenly feeling heavier. It wasn't that I wasn't prepared for him to want this. It was just that I hadn't expected it to happen so quickly. "Are you sure, Ryan? You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "I'm sure," he said, looking up at me. "I don't know if I can ever trust her again, but I need to know why she did what she did. I don't want to feel angry forever." His words hit me harder than I expected. This wasn't just about forgiveness anymore. This was about his own healing, his own path forward. I couldn't control that. I could only support him. "If you're sure, Ryan," I said softly, "then I'll support you. But remember, you don't have to make any decisions now. Take it one step at a time." He nodded slowly. "I will, Dad. I promise." The next morning, I called Sarah. My stomach twisted as I dialed her number. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but this wasn't about me. It was about Ryan. And if he was ready to see her, I was going to let that happen, even if it scared me. "Colton," Sarah answered on the second ring, her voice tentative, almost hopeful. "Ryan's ready to talk to you," I said, my voice calm but firm. "But it's on his terms. He's not going to just forgive you right away. And he's not doing this for you. He's doing it for himself." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Thank you, Colton," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect anything from him. I just want to make sure he knows I'm trying." I didn't say anything. I just hung up, the silence on the other end of the line heavy with unspoken words. It was up to her now, to prove that she deserved to be in Ryan's life again. That evening, I drove Ryan to the park where they had agreed to meet. It was the same place they had met before, a neutral ground. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew this wasn't going to be easy for either of them. As we pulled up, I could see Sarah standing near the same bench they'd met at weeks ago. She was alone this time, her posture a little less confident than before. She looked up when she saw us, her face softening with emotion. Ryan got out of the truck without hesitation, his steps slow but determined. I stayed behind, watching them from a distance. I wasn't going to interfere this time. This was Ryan's conversation, and it was his choice whether or not to let Sarah back in. "Hi, Ryan," Sarah said softly as he approached. Her voice was almost pleading, as if she was begging him to believe her. Ryan stood a few feet away, his arms crossed tightly. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her, searching her face like he was looking for something he hadn't seen before. I could tell he was still unsure. "Why did you leave?" he asked finally, his voice steady but the question heavy. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, taking a slow breath before speaking. "I thought I could find something better, Ryan. But all I found was more pain. I thought I could escape the life we had, but I was wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you." Ryan didn't say anything for a while, just stared at her, processing her words. "I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. But I'm willing to try." Her eyes welled with tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Ryan, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it." He nodded, his gaze softening. "I just need time. I can't fix everything right now, but I'm willing to try, too." There was a long silence, and then Sarah reached out, tentatively, as if waiting for permission. Ryan didn't pull away, but he didn't reach for her either. They stood there, in that space between them, unsure but willing. I didn't move from where I stood, my heart heavy but hopeful. Maybe this was the beginning of something. Maybe, just maybe, they were both ready to heal. The following weeks unfolded slowly, like the first tentative steps of someone learning to walk again. Ryan and Sarah met a few more times at the park, in places that felt safe. At first, their conversations were brief. Ryan didn't say much. He didn't have to. The weight of the years he'd lost, of the pain he'd carried, still hung in the air between them, but there was an unspoken understanding that things weren't going to be fixed overnight. I watched from a distance, but I didn't interfere. I gave them space, let them navigate this new chapter of their relationship however they saw fit. All I could do was support Ryan, guide him, and remind him that he had the right to set boundaries, to take things as slow as he needed. Sarah's presence in our lives was still tentative. She tried. I'll give her that. She didn't give up. She didn't expect forgiveness or a quick resolution. She came to our home a few times, just to sit on the porch, to talk with Ryan, to be part of his life again in whatever small way he allowed. But I still didn't fully trust her. Not yet. And honestly, that's okay. Trust takes time. Trust isn't something you can just hand over because someone asks for it. It's earned, through actions, through consistency, through showing up, over and over again, even when it's hard. As for me, I was learning to find a new rhythm. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened or pretending it didn't hurt anymore. It was about accepting that life would never be the same as it was before Sarah's betrayal, and that was okay. We could still find happiness, still find peace, even in the aftermath. One night, about a month after their first meeting, Ryan and I sat together on the porch. It had become our place, where we could talk about whatever was on our minds, without the pressure of being anywhere else. "You're doing okay, buddy?" I asked, glancing over at him as he watched the stars overhead. He nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "Yeah, I think I am." "You sure?" "Yeah," he said again, his voice a little steadier. "It's just, sometimes I still get angry. I don't want to feel like that, but I do." I nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. "It's okay to feel angry, Ryan, but don't let it keep you from moving forward. You don't have to forgive anyone before you're ready. And you don't have to forget. You just have to let go of what's holding you back." He took a deep breath, like he was letting something heavy fall off his chest. "I think I'm starting to. Slowly. That's all you need to do. One step at a time." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. It was a kind of quiet I hadn't felt in a long time. The kind that spoke of acceptance, of progress, even if it wasn't obvious at first. A few days later, I got another call from Sarah. She'd been quiet for a while, respecting the boundaries I had set. But now, she was reaching out again. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this, but I knew it was coming. "Colton," she said when I answered. Her voice was softer, gentler, than it had been in months. "I think I'm ready to talk. Really talk. About everything." I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "What do you mean?" "I know I've messed up. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to try. Not for me, Colton, but for Ryan. I know I can't just expect him to come back into my life. I know I need to show him that I'm serious. That I'm not going anywhere." I sat back in my chair, looking out the window. There was a heaviness in my chest, but also a strange sense of calm. "And what do you think I should do with all this?" "I think you need to know that I'm committed to making things right," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not because you want it, but because I need to prove to Ryan that I can be who he needs me to be. I'll take whatever time it takes, Colton. I'll do whatever it takes." I was quiet for a long time. What was I supposed to say? I didn't have the answers. I didn't know if Sarah's words were enough, if her actions would ever match up to her promises. "Take your time with him," I said finally. "Don't rush. Don't expect him to forgive you because you ask for it. He'll come around when he's ready. You can't force that." "I know," she said quietly. "I'm not rushing him. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying. And that I'll always be here for him." I closed my eyes, letting out a slow breath. This wasn't an easy decision to make. There was so much history between us, so much that had been broken. But there was one thing I had learned through all of this. Forgiveness wasn't a gift I could give to Sarah. It wasn't mine to give. It was Ryan's. And he'd have to find it on his own terms. "I'll talk to him," I said, my voice steady but tired. "But remember, you've got to show him, Sarah. Words don't mean anything without actions." "I understand," she said softly. "Thank you, Colton." I hung up the phone and leaned back in my chair. I didn't feel a sense of relief. I didn't feel like everything was going to be okay. But I felt something important, the realization that Ryan was stronger than I gave him credit for. And that whatever happened next, we would face it together. We would keep moving forward. I wasn't sure what the future held for any of us, but one thing was clear: we were healing. One step at a time.